Welcome to the VA 4x4 YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to go step by step on the process that I used to repaint my awning so it went from looking like this to like this. Here's a good side-by-side thanks to a buddy of mine who also recently got an Ironman awning. Because he got his, that also gives me a chance to redo this video in a much better way. So I will go ahead and make the excuse and the apology now that this video is patched together from small clips, because when I did this, I started back in August of 2021, and I didn't really intend to make a video when I started doing this. So I'll apologize now that the clips are kind of short, but I do make sure to go through each step and explain everything in this video. So at a minimum, these are the things that you're going to need to do this project on your own. You're going to need acetone, a scrubber of some sort. I used a sanding sponge, and some sort of cleaning solution. I used Simple Green. You're going to need masking tape to mask off the aluminum part of the awning or the brackets or whatever you don't want painted. The star of this video, if you will, is the SEM Marine Vinyl Paint, and they also have a product called Tack Free, and I'll walk through those at those parts of the video. So the first step for me was using acetone and just some blue rags to get the Ironman logo off of the awning. I don't know if this is absolutely necessary, but I didn't want to take the chance that it altered the texture in some way and it was still visible after the fact. So I used acetone and it came right off pretty easily. In this clip, it's not coming off as easy, but I had a very, very minimal amount of acetone on the rag. As soon as the logo is off, you're going to want to wash it immediately to make sure that any residual acetone is gone. And then this is your opportunity also to make sure that the entire surface is clean from any grease, road stains, whatever. I used a gray sanding sponge. You could use a green scrubber pad from Scotch that you could just get at Walmart also. And I used Simple Green and a garden hose just to make sure that I scrubbed it really well and I got a nice clean surface that was ready for paint. I toweled mine off and then I let it air dry the rest of the way. And once that was done, I used crumpled up paper just to put into the ends of the awning, just to kind of de-wrinkle the ends the best I could and try to kind of stretch the seams out a little bit so that I could make sure that paint went into the seams and there wasn't going to be any tan visible when I was done. The next step for me was using an air compressor to make sure that no water was in between the aluminum backing and the actual cover. But if you don't have an air compressor, of course, you could just let it air dry and just make sure that it's completely dry before you start. The next step, I didn't get a video of the actual process, but I taped off everything that I didn't want painted, and I was able to kind of get the masking tape to stick to the zipper. It didn't stick all that well, but in my case, I was doing black. If you're doing something other than black, you may have to be a little bit more careful about this than I did, but for black, it worked fine, masking it off the way that you see it in this clip. The product I used is called SEM Marine Vinyl Coat. As you can see from the picture in the pamphlet, it's designed for boat seats. So that tells you, one, that it's built for withstanding a lot of flexibility, people actually sitting on it. And two, it's got good UV protection because it's designed to be out in the sun all day long. I do want to point out that they have something called sand-free adhesive promoter. The purpose of this, when I looked it up, is to essentially melt the color into the substrate when you're doing it on PVC like we were in this video. I didn't do it in my case because when I watched the SEM Marine YouTube channel on how to use their product, it wasn't on an awning, it was on a boat, but on how to use it, they didn't mention it. If I were to go back and do this again, and when I do the next video, I am going to actually use this and see if that changes the outcome at all. But in my case, I didn't use it, and I'm very happy with it over a year later, so it may not be absolutely necessary. As you can see, the SEM Marine vinyl does come in a variety of colors, nothing too off the wall. It's all pretty basic, but you do have a little bit of flexibility in your choice. In my case, I went with Ranger Black, and you're supposed to apply this using light coats. You can see me doing my first coat here. It was actually probably a little bit heavier than it should have been. I would do this a little bit lighter. If I were you, don't worry about getting color coverage. It'll happen naturally as you get more coats. This is what it looks like 10 minutes after the first coat. Again, I probably put this on a little heavier than I should have. This is 10 minutes after the second coat, and I was kind of going around here just to look for any spots where I probably needed to focus when I did the third coat. So after the third coat, you can actually wait about 10 minutes and then you can start unmasking and start letting it dry. If you are only doing the base coat, you're not doing any logo or doing any other colors, go ahead and skip forward in this video to when I put on the tack free. I don't know what the timestamp of that will be, but I will put it at the bottom of the screen so that you can see it. This is what it looked like a little over 24 hours later when it's safe to handle. As you can see, it really looked fantastic. It turned out perfectly. It looks like it came this way from the factory, and there was really, unless you looked on the inside of it, there was no way for you to know that this was tan prior to seeing it this way. If you're going to add a logo or do any additional colors or patterns or anything, you'd want to use a vinyl sticker as a stencil to make sure that you get nice clean lines. And before you use a vinyl sticker, you should let the paint cure for at least a week before you do that. Otherwise, the adhesive in the vinyl can mess it up. A good way to tell to make sure that it's fully cured is put your nose up next to it. If you can smell the same smell that you could smell when you painted it, it's not fully cured yet. Once it doesn't have a smell, it's fully cured, and you can go ahead to the next step. So in my case, I had essentially a sticker of my logo made, except I asked for the inverse of it. So take the sticker part out and just send me the outline of it. And I applied that to the side of the awning, making sure I got it positioned correctly first, and then I just taped up around it. And then what I did next is used the same exact process, except I used the white Carver color. And I did 4 coats of this on top of the logo. And then about 10 minutes after the last coat, I went ahead and peeled the mask off. I did have a couple spots that I kind of messed up, like the inside of the A, the inside of the 4 when I was taking that out. If I could do it again, and what I would suggest you do is maybe take a little dab of super glue and like the end of a toothpick or something, and then just glue it to the triangle that represents that piece or whatever you have. And that will give you a little handle. So when you're done painting, you could use that to peel it directly back and you won't nick the corners of it like I did when I took mine off. The final step of this is to use SEM's product called Tack Free as a top coat to this. And you can apply this while your vinyl coat is still wet. What this does is eliminates the tackiness of it. So it takes away the kind of stickiness that you may feel otherwise. But more importantly, it eliminates plasticizer migration. So it stops, any like sticky things, vinyl stickers or anything else that might touch it or sap or whatever from getting into the paint. And it'll protect against alcohol-based cleaners as well. So if you don't apply this and you took some rubbing alcohol on a rag and wiped it, you would take the stuff right off. After you put this on and it's dried and cured, alcohol won't damage the finish. All right, this is May 30th, 2022. This was, the initial paint job was done in August of 2021. And then the logo I added on was just a couple months ago, but this is what it looks like now. It's held up very well. That scratch is when I dropped it. It has nothing to do with the paint. But if you look at the inside, it looks brown, or the original, obviously. And then the exterior, that's what it looks like. Held up extremely well. It's taken some trail scratches. And yeah, like you can kind of, I don't know if it's going to show up on video, but you can kind of see some scratches in it, and it stayed black from trees and such. But very pleased with how it turned out. And that is the entire process. As of October of 2022, it still looks just as good. There's been lots of trail scratches, and you can see the scratches on the surface just like you can in my truck's paint. But just like my truck's paint, it still looks the same color. It's still black. It hasn't scratched down to the tan or anything, so it's held up very well. The color still looks exactly the same, and I'm very pleased with the way that it turned out.